There's nobody I'd rather not be live with than you all.
We're live now.
Oh, no.
Good evening, folks. Welcome back. This is your half-hour call. Half hour, please. Half hour.
Hi, everyone. I think I finally got it. We are live on Facebook. I'm here with Joe Wilson Jr. and Becky Gibble and Charlie Thurston. I am so happy to be here for our first episode of your half-hour call. And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight talking about why we do musical theater. But first, what we're going to do is play you a little clip that Becky sent me the other day. Peter, do you mind playing that for us? Thanks.
Okay, you guys, Charlie Thurston. Ever since Sweeney got postponed, Charlie Thurston has been singing Joanna around the house like he's rehearsing, but he'll adapt the lyrics to fit whatever situation is at hand. So I think that he's about to, okay, hang with me. I'm gonna try and find him. Here we go. Oh God. Oh God, how do I flip this thing?
Banana, I feel you. I was half convinced I'd wait again, satisfied enough with oatmeal. Obviously I was mistaken. Banana, I peel you. Banana. You're filming.
That is so stupid, you guys. I love it. I love it. Hey, thanks for being here with me, y'all. This is actually going live, and it's the first time that we've announced that Charlie Thurston is going to play Antony in our production of Sweeney Todd. So people are finding that out here and now live on Facebook. Hey, thanks so much for being with us. This is quite an adventure. We're all quarantined separately. Becky and Charlie, for those of you who don't know, happen to be married in real life. And so they're quarantining together. So we're all obeying the quarantine. No one has to tell us to knock it off. So I wanted to talk about musical theater. Joey and I have been collaborating on musical theater for, well, since 2006. That means really we've been doing this for 15 years. And Becky and Charlie, you joined us a little bit later, but we've all done so many musicals together. This just seemed like the really great way to kick off our series. And I wanted to start with a big topic question. Why do we do musical theater? What is it about musical theater? So I thought I would start by asking each of you what draws you to the musical theater or perhaps doesn't. So, Joe?
I love to sing. When I think about musical theater, I think about the impulse that we all have to create, you know, whether that be to dance to a song, or to sing, or write a piece of poetry, or take a photograph, or write a play. Whatever that creative spark is to make us have to reflect upon a thing that we're experiencing or seeing, or that's a part of our sphere in that moment is a powerful thing. And I think that creative impulse is mirrored in the moment when a character in a musical decides to sing, that they have no other way to communicate the beauty of something, the pain of something, the grief of something, the truth of something, their anger, their passion, their love, but to sing. And so to me, musicals are snapshots, stories that consist of snapshots of people being at their highest power in terms of if it was a superpower to emote, a superpower to create, a superpower to share and experience that starts off as an individual response to something with the public. I think that creative response, that need to respond creatively, is the same kind of impulse a character has when he or she needs to sing. And so there's a purity to that. There's an honesty to that. There's a need to that. There's an urgency to that. There's poetry in that, you know, in trying to recapture that thing, that moment, that image. We only have words. And so musicals then become, I think, even more heightened forms of storytelling because of the combination of impulse, the impulse in that moment for the being to be the ultimate poet, the ultimate songwriter, the ultimate the chronicler of a life experience. And to me, that's what musicals are. People at those heightened moments in their lives, or heightened moments in a relationship, or at a point in their lives. And that makes it always exciting to me. And quite frankly, there's something, as we all know about music, it has a healing power. Music is a language that whether there are words or lyrics, there's something about the notes, something about tone, something about that makes us respond in a primal way that really breaks down barriers of race, ethnicity, class. A note is a note, a minor chord is a minor chord, and that makes us feel what it makes us feel collectively. And I think music is one of the most powerful instruments of forging a kind of collective experience.
Amazing. Thank you. Becky Gibble?
Yeah, to build on that, the thing that I think about is that the most elemental part of ourselves in a lot of ways and being alive is breath, right? And so breath is the thing that, like, voice is built on breath. And I think that voice and that reverberation, like that's the first sound that we hear in the womb is our mother's voice, right? And so that's like the elemental medium of human emotion and human connection. And in a musical, when we sing, it's different than when we're speaking to each other, because that tone, that human voice is stretched and expanded. And so I think about the word emotion, and motion is part of that word for a reason, right? And emotion, it travels, it moves on human breath. And so music and the human voice and singing in musicals is so powerful because it stretches that emotional medium longer and connects us more solidly. Is why.
Amazing. Oh my God, I'm not even gonna have to talk tonight. Charlie Thurston, what do you think, bud?
Yeah. I think that what's always drawn me to the theater as a specific medium is that it's not, and I think that's something that Trinity, over the history of of this theater and its relationship to the audience, is that it embraces the theatrical, the things that are not grounded in realism or naturalism. And people out on the streets don't randomly break out into song to express themselves, but that, if done well, theater kind of transcends the normal into something kind of wondrous and magical. That kind of primal connection that Joey's talking about, when you hear another person singing, when they're literally vibrating the air that reaches you, it touches you in this kind of, almost, it's hard to articulate it because it's not logical. It's kind of animal, the way you can kind of feel their voice, and suddenly the emotion becomes instinctual in a way. And that kind of like wonder, that connection where something is not based in reality, but somehow becomes that much more real, is something that I think musicals have the potential to do.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay, so you're all this, I hadn't even gone to this level of specificity, which is the way that music makes us vibrate when we're in a room with it, right? It's the thing that when we're in a spiritual space, you know, song is a part of that space. And I hadn't even really considered that connection between the musical form, the stage musical form, and the spiritual musical form until you all started talking, and then it just becomes clearer. I mean, as a director, I like it because of the complicated ways that I can tell a story, or as a writer, the complicated ways that I can tell a story, because I'm not I'm not constrained, as Charlie points out, by naturalism. And in fact, there's a lot of stuff that an audience is receiving simultaneously that we could see spoken in a straight play, but in a musical is all happening all at once. So I'm about to ask Peter to play a clip. First, I'm going to say to our audience, those of us who are watching us on Facebook Live, at the end of this conversation, we're going to take questions. So if you have questions, leave them on the Facebook Live post and in the comments section, and we'll get to the questions as we go along. Okay, great. But in the meantime, Peter, can you play for me that clip from Paris by Night? Great. This is Paris by Night, 2007, y'all.
Daybreak in the city of night. Anything is possible. Everything is new.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Everything is
Daybreak in the city of night. The city's great gray splendor fills my waiting view.
Before the break of day, we steal the last kiss of the night.
No, this promise isn't meant to stay. Heartbreaking cold, harsh light.
At least there's croissant and coffee to finish off these dreams.
The lingering shade of twilight, restore reality to see.
Daybreak.
How beautiful is that? I know. It's a very dark old video. We didn't exactly have the best video capture, but what I want to point out is the ways in which, as an audience, what we're experiencing is like an emotional state, right? That early morning, late night sense of post-coital. I don't know even how to describe it, and then the accordion and the jazz trio sets us so firmly in both a period and a place, right? With the beautiful Michael Rice on the piano there as our music director. I think Michael's watching tonight, so we just want to all shout out and say, love you, Michael Rice. But it's those layers of storytelling, they're all happening at once. You're introducing multiple characters. In a straight play, that would be confusing. In a musical, that's accepted, right?
Mhm.
I love that. I think that's the reason that I want to do musicals sort of all the time. But then I want to get back to this idea that you're all talking about of the primal, what's the animal, the instinctual that musicals call forth. What is that? Why is that? Is it rhythm? Is it sound? Is it what?
I think it's all of it, because it's also unifying a group's breath. So then the people on stage have to be, because that meter is set out by the music underneath, like things can only take a certain amount of time, and everybody's breathing together and becoming inspired in the same way and in the same part of the story. So it's that thing you're talking about, Kurt. It like adds extra layers to that storytelling that are different than when music and singing are not present.
Mm-hmm.
I love them also because I think, unlike any other thing that we do on stage, we always talk about collective. We always talk about ensemble, building an ensemble. We spend tons of time. We're lucky being a part of an acting company where, we've spent many days at the rodeo together, but, we build company and build ensemble. And because of that breath, because of the sound, because of the notes on the page, we are automatically, the minute the lights go down, acting as a collective, which is why some of my favorite parts of musicals actually are overtures, or the beginnings of musicals, because this world is being established. It's being established in a forceful way by the composer, It's being established by a forceful way by the lyricist, but it's also being established in a forceful way by the ensemble, you know, by the act of singing together for the first time. Or even if it's not the or the everyone singing together the first time, it's a body in space, in conversation with the orchestra. I think about, you know, my first Broadway show. I'll never forget running out in Superstar and hearing and there were no words, but we were engaged in this entire choreographed storytelling around what was happening in the world. Or you know, I think about Sweeney Todd, that whistle in Sweeney is, you know, that overture is undeniable when it starts. You know, you think about the great musicals, and it's you actually, I think it's when the audience can become most present with a cast backstage before they go on. They're there with us from the very beginning. They're watching us breathe together. They're watching us, hearing us sing that first note together. They're hearing us gather as a collective, and it's something you can't explain, but I think it's something you can hear, because when it stinks, you know, it really stinks. And because of pitch and tone and all those things. But I think it's Shakespearean in that way.
That's what I was thinking.
It's not just pitch and tone, you know. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get into so much trouble because this is live. But when you watch sort of a soulless musical that we've all experienced in certain commercial settings, where the product is what more important than the process, the people in the audience, you know what I mean? Like, Joey, that thing that you're describing where the audience is backstage is so vivid in a great musical, right? And in a great overture, in that great first moment, and so dull and soulless in a musical where it's just there for the purpose that, oh, people like musicals. And I think the reason to do them is so much more profound than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
Charlie,
not, I mean, I think that we have gotten in a contemporary place of where we want to walk into a musical and respond in the same way that we would respond at a pop concert. That you want to be able, you know, and oftentimes we caught into a trap in the room thinking about Paris by Night, you know, what's the catchy lyric? What's the catchy tune? What's hummable? What will they be singing once they leave the theater? And then oftentimes when we think in those terms, we're not thinking about dramatic content. And I think of some of the songs that strike me the most in terms of musical theater. It's not just that they sound pretty, but it's the context of the dramatic content that makes me sing them in my shower and holding the hairbrush, that made me as a kid want to be that character and not just dance and sing to a catchy tune.
well, that's why I wanted to play that clip of Charlie singing to a banana, is because I actually think there's something of that in that, Joey. That's what you're describing. That Joanna tune, Rachel Warren was just talking about this last night, right? It's so complicated. And when he finally sort of announces it, it goes bum, bum, bum. You know, there's this massive percussion that happens, and it's not pretty at all when he discovers that he loves her. It's earth-shaking, right, Charlie?
Yeah, one of the first professional gigs I did years and years ago was Sweeney Todd, and I was in the ensemble.
With me?
Yeah, with Becky. It was before we were together, and I understudied Anthony, this role, and so I spent a lot of time thinking about the song, and I've been, that video was silliness from Becky and I, but I have been kind of obsessing over that song for that reason, that it's like the journey of it and his emotional kind of trajectory for it, and that's why everybody loves Sondheim, is it's so nuanced and so specific, but it begins so simply and so delicate with the just, and lyrically, I feel you, Joanna. He's kind of taking in some sort of transcendent moment where he can literally kind of encounter this woman in the air. And it's this very delicate thing. And then, as Kurt says, it builds to this, like, he has changed forever. Yeah. And then him pursuing her changes the story and leads to the domino effect of the conclusion. So it's like his transformation transforms the world. And I think Sondheim with that sound can kind of transform the metaphysics of the room. So like a good musical, you feel like, you know, you're in a dark theater sitting next to, you know, whoever you came with. But at the same time, if the music is really successful, it can kind of transport you to a place of otherness.
So this is a perfect segue for the next clip that I'm about to play, which is from Beowulf, A Thousand Years of Baggage. So Peter, can you roll that clip for us?
That was so fun.
This is from Dave Malloy and Jason Craig's Beowulf.
I'm passing, then I passed, smooth clover underfoot. I can smell the clotting blood on my neck. It is scabbing and covering and holding in the infectious dragon spit. I'm passing. Dragon kissed and with a meadow smile. A slick lava ooze mixed with blood. Faithful reaper plants in one fern. They drank scaly flood. I'm passing, then I passed, smooth clover underfoot. The poison like heroin racing through. That demon will stay there inside of me. We are enemy and companion now.
How about that?
Ah,
Remember when we did that, y'all?
Yeah.
that was so much fun.
So much fun. That show was so much fun. But to everyone's point, you know, to two of the points, one being that was an ensemble piece like nothing. I mean, we all held hands in that, and it wasn't easy. And I don't think Dave's music is easy in that show, and I don't think the book that Jason, the lyrics that Jason wrote, are easy either, in a way that is extraordinary and beautiful and shocking. And you know, I'm reading the comments while I'm watching this, and Ricardo Pitzwiley, who's also, I guess, watching us.
Hey, Rick!
Beloved. He wrote, "The most beautiful things are the things that you can't explain." And honestly, that's what happened to me with Beowulf, is that we got to that ending, and every time, Charlie, I found myself sitting in the back weeping, and I didn't know why. But there was just something about that music. I don't know. I'm trying to get at it. What do you guys think?
I was struck. I'd forgotten a lot of the details about that last song. I remember Charlie's beautiful performance of it. I remember kind of the rock star ballad event of it, and that the music was stylistically, the music changed to be soft and almost, I don't know, folk-like is the wrong term, but it turned melancholy. And as we were watching it this time, I was really aware of the contrast between that hyper emotional song, and then the lyrics kept like dragging me out of that sentimental place, which I think was, I mean, I know it was intentional. It was definitely intentional. So I was interested in that.
Dragon spit. Right? I mean, dragon spit as a lyric is your brain goes, what? But that's actually, Charlie, to your point about Sondheim and Joanna and Sondheim in general, there's a dissonance between it's not music that you sit comfortably in it's music that sort of challenges you and steps you forward, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's complicated and surprising and takes unexpected twists, I think, in Sweeney a lot. And I think, yeah, Dave Malloy and Jason were playing with that too, of like, they're a successful musical. Kurt, you're talking about like the various layers when we were watching Paris by Night clip. Like a successful musical, if you take one of those layers away, it falls apart. And so I think Beowulf, what was really dynamic about it is that they walked this weird kind of thematic line of where sometimes it would seem completely silly and ridiculous, and sometimes it would seem completely earnest. And the music kind of always stayed unexpected, but like haunting and strong. And then we kind of as a collective added this layer of like the rock star's journey, which I don't know if is necessarily inherently in what they wrote. But I think I hope that ending landed some of that like all of those pieces kind of fit together, and as a way that Ricardo says, like you can't really understand why. It just it hits you in a way that is not, you can't put it to words. It transcends logic. And that's the hope, is that all of these things hit you at once and you're just kind of speechless.
One of our listeners, Janet, said, it's that energy. It's that energy. You can't describe what it is, but there's an energy that happens. And I think it happens in a great Shakespeare play. I think it happens in a great play. It certainly happened in Radio Golf this year. It certainly happened in Tale of Two Cities, where you're suddenly the play is so much more than just the words. It's everything happening at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joey, you were talking about this vis-a-vis Sweeney Todd last night, and what's exciting to you. We were in another Zoom call, y'all, and Joe was talking about what's exciting to him about playing Sweeney. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there's a lot exciting about playing that part. First of all, it's beautiful. The music is absolutely beautiful, and what an incredible journey or dilemma, I should say, with the character, because one could argue about journey, but dilemma about character. I've always been excited to do musicals in a very selfish way. And I guess that way is my musical journey started in the church. And so it was singing, from the hymnals at church, and I was in part of the choir and the gospel choir when I was in college. But until, I experienced The Wiz for the first time, and, you begin to see people of color in different musicals that featured us. I've always been excited about being, one of the things that excites me the most about Sweeney, and there've been other Sweeneys of color, but I'm always excited about the idea of how do I translate my body into those kinds of what have become iconic roles, and specifically, drawn to, hold the jokes, but the ones who are really damaged, and drawn to them because I feel like in a selfish way, it gives me the opportunity to give them a voice and to give them an advocate. And I think we feel all that way about all the characters that we play. You have to be the character's advocate, no matter what they do or how they do it. But I'm especially excited about that when it comes to the musical canon. I think the musical canon is something that, much more than the classics in this country, I think that we hold that canon sacred, in a very sacred space. It transcends generations. Your grandparents are playing the albums of Camelot, or my mama was, maybe she would put on an album of I'm thinking, you think of The Wiz, or you think Raised in the Musical, or So music was always in the home, even if it was Mahalia Jackson was always present. And so the idea of the musical theater wasn't so present in my house. But now that I've been in this business for almost 25 years or a little more, I always find it exciting as an African-American artist to step into these roles and to find where I can live within them. But with that comes a great danger. And that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, no, and so I want to do this. I want to play a clip from Ragtime, and then come back and talk about this, because one of the things that this conversation points to is that canonical musicals, when in my estimation, when done badly, are done as if the audience isn't present, right? as if they're in a museum somewhere stuck in time. But as we're going to see in this clip from Ragtime, the audience was about as present as you could get in the set by the genius Eugene Lee. Let's watch this clip. Peter, can you play that for us? This is from Ragtime in 2018.
Is now testifying for the defense, Miss Evelyn Nesbit.
Your Honor, I was once the lady friend of Stanford White. He's the famous architect. Yes, that's right. He put me on a velvet swing and made me wear, well, hardly anything. Ruined at the age of 15, Your Honor. Then I went and married Mr. Harry Thaw, eccentric millionaire. Oh, Harry's a jealous man. Bang, bang. That was the end of Stan. Your Honor, be fair. My Harry went crazy, I swear. La 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 la. Now it's the crime of the century. Crime of the century. Giving the world a thrill. Harry's in trouble and Stan's in heaven, and Evelyn is in vaudeville. Crime of the century. Crime of the century. All for a youthful fame. Fortune, fame, and a ruined name. And now I'm the girl on the swing. Whee!
That was redunculous.
Well, and that makes me then think about, like, as we're talking about layers, then like the brilliant choreography by Sharon Jenkins on that.
Oh my God, Sharon Jenkins choreography.
Like bringing that conversation into the future, the past, our present. The layer that adds is bananas.
Right. You guys remember that she came in with that idea. She was like, I think that Becky should be wearing newspapers because it's really about like the press and then that just, it's just such a resonant image. She's such a genius and we've all worked with her.
And Becky had the newspaper idea, but then Sharon, what's so great about Sharon is she's really receptive. And so Becky comes in with this bold idea that kind of changed her initial concept and then everybody rolled with it. Yeah.
I think that clip is also an example of, we talk about there's an element, let's just face it, we don't just walk down the street and you start singing to your lover about how much you love them and I'm gonna die without you. Or you don't just walk down the street and you see your mortal enemy there and you pull out a gun and you sing a song, and that doesn't happen. So there's an element of, and this is the thing I love about, where I work, Trinity Rep, is that we don't like to wallow, as Becky said, in realism. We realize, we understand and we embrace that there's something ultra unrealistic in the act of 500 people in a room watching a play, people singing songs. And so what I think musicals give us permission to do that we've always done at Trinity is to rely solely upon the actor and the imagination of the artist. And so it gives us license and agency to not be literal. It gives us license and agency to be fanciful. And I think once you unlock that for people, it takes them out of this world of, yeah, I'm tapping my foot to a good song, but I'm having an experience. I'm watching actors act on pitch. I'm watching actors tell a story to a series of notes. And then you watch these actors in that choreography where, acting, I think, of course, our bodies and voices are engaged completely in a performance. But when you're singing, that adds even an extra level of something technical to do. It's one more layer of technical, but it's also one more layer that literally our bodies as actors are being engaged, one other way that we're being engaged. And so as much as we vibrate in a musical, we hope that the audience is vibrating that much more exponentially in witnessing a musical versus watching a play. So it's
interesting, Joey. I'm listening to you say all this, and as you're talking about it, then the Trinity Rep style is the thing that makes this so great, right? Which is if you strip away, in that ragtime clip, you can see Eugene's set is a couple of pieces of wood, some platforms, tables, and chairs, and that's it. You see all of the orchestra isn't hidden. You see all of the actors, and you see the audience. They're all visible in this event. So what you're saying, which I think is really important, is that in a great experience of a musical, the whole collective community of people in that room are engaged, right?
I
Right.
think,
You know,
I've enjoyed, I think, Kurt, you've been directing a lot of the musicals recently, and I've had such a blast working on them. And I think that when Trinity is at its best, and I think, Kurt, when you're at your best, it's the same thing. You talked about kind of like seeing a sterile musical theater where it's just like you're kind of cookie cuttering like what the show is. And you go and see the show, it's going to be the same in Providence is the same as in Cleveland. But what you do, I think that's really great is you're really responsive to all of the artists in the room. So for like that number, it actually, I think it's kind of funny that we can't remember whose idea it was first, because that's the point. It becomes this cocktail of all of these different ideas. Because when we're really cooking, it's like somebody brings in an idea and then 6 more people go, and what about that? And what about that? And then, so like some of my proudest moments at Trinity are working on musicals, because we've been talking about all those layers that they only work when combined together. And somehow Trinity, we don't use the old layers that everybody's used. We come up and we insert some new ones in there. And when it's really cooking, it's like that much more rich and kind of distilled down and essentialized and really specific to that moment in this specific time with this specific group of people, like acknowledging who's playing the different parts. So like in our Sweeney, we will acknowledge that an African-American man is playing Sweeney, and we'll try to make that as ingrained in the production as every other detail.
And I also think the thing that happens in our musicals is that that both the writer and the book writers and the songwriter writers, like in Ragtime, and just a little moment to the glorious Terrence McNally, we love you, we miss you. You can hear Terrence McNally's words in our production of Ragtime because he's a present tense collaborator. You hear the Flaherty and Aaron's music in a way that necessarily you wouldn't, because everything else is stripped away, right? And they are literally collaborators with us in the room. I think back to y'all doing Sarah Ruhl's and Todd Allman's Melancholy play, and how glorious that was with 5 actors and the brilliant Andrew Smithson on the piano and music directing, and that little ensemble. And it's like everything else is gone, and all you have are the actors, the words, and the experience of the audience. That's, I think, what we do differently and best.
Liesl Tommy didn't put a salon on stage. She didn't put a psychoanalyst's office on stage. She had 5 chairs essentially in a chaise lounge, and that was it. And everything then springs, like you're saying, from the words, and that's when it's the most exciting for me too.
I'm looking down because I'm starting to get some questions that are coming from our Facebook feed. So I'm going to take a few of the questions so that, because I could talk to the 3 of you all night long. We keep acknowledging in these kinds of calls how much we miss each other. And the hardest part of this quarantine has been that I don't get to see all of you. And yeah, that's been really hard. I'm not going to talk about it too much or I'm going to cry. What are each of you most looking forward to when tackling an epic show like Sweeney Todd? That's from William.
Oh.
I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. Well, for a while, obviously, for obvious reasons. I'm reminded when I was doing a production of a Romeo and Juliet at the McCarter Theater in the late summer of 2000. and 9/11. And we were supposed to open that show that night when 9/11 happened, and we didn't, for obvious reasons, because we couldn't get out of the city. And there was a big discussion around, you know, how do we proceed forward? How do we behave in this new normal? You know, I remember when baseball got back. How do we behave? What do we do? Are we allowed to be in a room together? Are we allowed to do this anymore? Is it too trivial to do? Does it matter? Why should we be here? Shouldn't we be doing something else? And I'll tell you, we got back to the theater the very next day. We were able to get out of the city the next day, or maybe it was 2 days. But the first performance that we did of that production, the one thing I kept thinking of is, who in the hell is going to show up? Who in the hell is going to show up to come and see Romeo and Juliet after we watched two planes go into two buildings and watched all of these beautiful souls lost? And one of my most memorable experiences in the theater is that night when we did that first preview of Romeo and Juliet. The theater was packed. People needed to be, you could feel that people needed to be there. They wanted to be there. And they sat through that experience, and they sat through it and lived through it and experienced it from where they were. And it was one of the most memorable, powerful nights for me in the theater. And that's what I think most about, whether it's Sweeney Todd, and I'm being honest, or it's whatever that we do, whatever that first time that we are in that theater again together, in whatever way that we are, I'm going to be thinking about that moment. I'm going to go back to that moment, and I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to try to, thinking about musicals and breathing as much as possible, taking in that air, hearing your heartbeats, seeing the look in your eyes, seeing you look around the theater and wonder, why am I here? Is this okay? And then forgetting about it. And then us coming to an end of a story, and you've hopefully been transformed, or you've hopefully been transfixed, or you've gone on some kind of journey. That's what I look forward to. I look forward to that. And again, I can talk about, I look forward to playing Sweeney. I look forward to the production. I look forward to being a part of this team again with you, Kurt, and with Becky and Charlie. We've been around. This is not our first time at this rodeo in terms of musicals. And it's true, our rooms are collaborative, and they're wonderful, safe spaces where we're allowed to do stupid stuff, try stupid stuff, but we're also open and vulnerable in musical spaces by nature of simply how you're opening your mouth and breathing. You're already more vulnerable. You know, A-E-I-O-U versus consonant. I mean, we're vulnerable in the most elemental of ways. And I look forward to all that. I look forward to all of that. I look forward to that whistle at the top of Sweeney, but I mostly look forward to what it will mean for us as a collective gathering again for the first time. What will that feel like? What will it smell like? What will it taste like? And I know it'll be a memory that we'll all remember for a very long time.
Bex, Charlie, anything to add? That's so gorgeous.
I don't know if I talk, I'm gonna cry, so Charlie, take it.
Well,
it's a really interesting thing that Joe raises is like, we've been talking about these last few minutes about kind of what is special about what we do is that we are all in this room together. And that's what kind of defines our medium, is that we are live performers, and we are giving that time and that energy and burning those calories to present this story to these group of some strangers and some friends in a room. And that's going to be even more pressurized after we get through this on the other side of, like, I know that I'm jonesing to be shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of strangers, you know, like that energy of feeding off of like a group of people all gathered to experience something together in real time is going to just put gasoline on what we're already doing. So I'm excited for the rehearsal room to think about those stakes and think about this world and think about what we've all learned in this last month and bring it to our storytelling.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I think I keep thinking about the story and what that story meant to us having, let's say we would have opened last Monday. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yes, last Monday.
We would have opened last Monday. What that story would have meant to us in that space and time. But now what the story will mean to us in the fall, all that we've been through. You know, I was talking last night, you know, the first sort of lyrics I was trying to learn in the musical was, you know, there's a hole in the world like a great black pit, and the vermin of the world inhabit it, and its morals aren't worth what a pig would spit. And it goes by the name of London. At the top of the hole to the privileged few, making mock of the vermin and the lowly few. I mean, God, what that means now to me to
Yeah.
Joe, to angry, pissed off, yo,
Yeah.
about, you know, what this pandemic has exposed about how we have not taken care of our business as a country and how we support each other. And so, you know, I think that's the thing I think about too. With this, how this music will be different for us, even then.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. Actually, it's really exciting.
You know, it's Joey and I in this conversation last night, we're talking about how in Eugene Lee's original set, beautifully, the act curtain had something that it called the Victorian Beehive of Class, and it had like the sort of the top people, and then it kept going down and down and down, and the bottom row were the size of the actors that started out in front of it. So you knew exactly where you were, no doubt. And that's the thing that's interesting, is that this is a musical about what happens if you don't take care of everyone in your society. And it's fascinating. Becky, I'm sorry I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
It was exactly that. I was thinking about class, and then I was also thinking about imprisonment on so many different levels, like Joanna being locked in and then getting freedom. Sweeney in the same way, the beggar woman, mother, and then everybody also being in prison within this strict society that dictates everything about your life based on where you were born, how you were born, what body you were born into.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really surprising and exciting to us when we get into that rehearsal room and start unpacking.
I'm going to take like 2 more questions. This is from Emma. How are you all continuing to work on your craft when you can't be on stage?
I think I know which Emma.
So what do you think?
That's a really great question.
We're singing dumb songs in our kitchens.
Yeah.
You know, coming up with stupid ideas. Charlie and I are like just making stuff up as we go to sleep at night too.
Actually a bunch of videos that Becky and Charlie have recorded on the Trinity Rep website. Please go and visit that. And there's other videos from the acting company. So make sure you check those out. That is a way that we're staying active and creative.
I also find it very hard. For me, like, to be completely candid, usually I get fed by that process of figuring something new out. And here in my home, I have a really hard time. Even just recording those short snippets has been a major struggle that I was really surprised by.
I'm gonna go further and kind of jump off of where Becky got us started with being honest. I'm gonna be candid as well. This has been a really interesting time in that when it was first thrust upon us, I think, you know, I saw a lot of stuff happening online and Facebook and, you know, memes or whatever, you know, about being creative and, you know, so-and-so wrote a Pulitzer Prize winning play at whenever, and in the greatest pandemic, so-and-so made this thing, and then it's our chance to do this and create this. And I got to tell you, I have not wanted to do a damn thing. And I think that part of that's been out of depression. A part of it's been out of, you know, I literally a month ago when we were first beginning to go through this, I was with a friend in New York who is battling an illness, which is a way of kind of bringing you back to reality. I've been a very fortunate performer over the past 15 years of my career here in Providence, which means that, you know, I haven't had a lot of time to kind of sit and think and collect myself. And I'm a person who needs to kind of do that because I do get depressed. I live alone. I've lived alone for a long time. I think it's part of what makes my work what it is. I'm intense to a fault, control freak. I'm always worried, whether it's about what I'm doing or about money or about my life or what is that's a perpetual state that I'm in. And so what I felt like I've been granted in a way, and I hope this doesn't sound crazy because this is a horrible thing that we're going through, this collective pause, I have been trying to really take it to heart and force myself to really pause. And not try to be creative, not trying to make the best Pulitzer Prize winning play, not trying to write poetry. I really have been sitting in my own shit, and that's been good for me. And being still and being quiet has been tough, but I've learned a lot. And I've been able to hear some parts about myself that I need to address and deal with, that this time has given me a chance to identify those things. So I have been wallowing in doing nothing, but not nothing in terms of literally nothing, but forcing myself to be a little still and not get caught up into a world that shut down all of our own impulses of let's get back to work, let's do something, let's not waste time. This is wasted time. No, it's not wasted time. I think as creative beings, our lives are consumed with production and with creation and with giving birth to stuff. Like when you see us, we have 4 weeks of rehearsal, but obviously I'm thinking about Sweeney Todd right now. You see, you perform a show for 4 weeks, but to get over that show takes 4 more weeks. The cycle of our lives are longer than, and our creative friends know this, the cycle of a painting or making a painting or writing a play or choreographing a dance piece, the cycle of the life of a work that you see may be this, but the cycle of that life has been this. And so I'm just trying to carve out a little bit of space for myself to sit and stew in my own juices, and that's okay, if that makes any kind of sense.
It makes all the sense. It's one of the things that I keep saying to my creative friends is when the world tells you to pause, maybe you should pause. Maybe there's instruction in that pause. And, Joe, I think that's like one of the wisest responses to the situation that I've heard. I mean,
but let me just be honest. Let me just not be glib about this too, because I know that a lot of people right now are struggling, and especially artists in terms of money and resources and paying the rent and raising children and groceries. I mean, this is a real. So I can talk from my privilege and say I can sit and collect myself, but the struggle is real. But I don't mean I'm trying to be funny, but we're all broke right now, so it's great.
Well, at least we're not going out and spending a lot of money on food.
So I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm not trying to be glib. I know that this is a struggle right now for lots of people.
No, I guess I'm trying to see the positive things, the ways that this can be productive, the ways that it can inflect the work that we do on the other side of it. I'm trying to, the situation is evolving and we're trying to get back into the theater to work together again, to be with our audience again, but it's requiring us to be creative in our adaptation. And so, a big part of my creative life right now is just trying to adapt, evolve, and move things forward. So we're at the end of our time. It went so quickly. Our half-hour call turned into an hour.
Oh, it did.
It really did. It really did. So there were a couple of things that I mentioned that you can find more on the Show Goes On page on trinityrep.com. I want you to go and check that out if you're watching tonight. We are so looking forward to being back in a room together with you in the fall. We want to get there as soon as possible. If you miss us, that you can subscribe online. We are going to do our damnedest. We're going to move heaven and earth to come back and be in front of you and doing work. Our donors have been a lot of you have donated your tickets back, which has been incredibly generous. It's made it possible for us to stay open, to keep people paid. I can't thank everyone, donors, staff, artists. We're all, we've got our hands held and we're moving forward together. We are going to get through this. Trinity Rep is going to come back stronger. If you miss us, you can also, we got a ton of online classes for high school students. You can join us for those things. And then you can come back next week and join us here again for your half-hour call, which is probably going to always turn into an hour. What can I say? I can't help it. I have these beautiful friends, great loves of my life, Joe Wilson Jr., Rebecca Gibble, Charlie Thurston. I miss you all so much. So we're gonna go, we're gonna play out. Peter's gonna play us a little video that Becky sent us. It's Try to Remember from the Fantastics, which Joe and I did in my first season here. And that's all. Everyone take care. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Love you. Bye. Peter, hit it.
It's raining right now, so I don't know if the mic will pick up the sound of the rain, but I kind of like it for this song. Try to remember the kind of September when life was slow and oh so mellow. Try to remember the kind of September when grass was green and grain was yellow. Try to remember the kind of September when you were a tender and callow fellow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow. Try to remember when life was so tender that no one wept except the willow. Try to remember when life was so tender that dreams were kept beside your pillow. Try to remember when life was so tender that love was an ember about to billow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow.
Thank you, everyone. Good show. That is it for this week. We are back again next week at the same time. Once again, we are back here next Thursday evening for a 7:30 p.m. half hour. Thank you so much. Have a great night and a great week.